Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shill stets, slave peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, shopaholics, consumers. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And let's go to the not so good old USA and talk about the continuing real retail contraction. And over the last 2 years, I've done a number in what's turning into an ongoing series about the continuing retail contraction. And a lot of it is just a reconfiguration of the retail market because, as everyone knows, the online retail is taking out huge chunks of the traditional retail markets, the brick and mortar stores out there, particularly in the malls. And so that has a lot to do with it. But there's also shifts in consumer trends and consumerism. And a lot of that's borne out by the fact that stores like the dollar store, they're talking about opening another 900 stores in the next year. So as I brought up in these other videos, what we see is a separation. So we're going to have a lot of stores that cater to the low end of retail and discount retail. TJ Maxx and Nordstrom Rack and the dollar store and Ross are all doing well in this environment. But all those traditional middle class stores are disappearing. And then we have the high end, the luxury retail market, which has still been doing well, although recently there's been trends downward even in the luxury market. But for the most part, this is the traditional middle class retail market, particularly the malls that we're seeing affected. And most recently, the big stories, of course, are about Macys and Kmart and Sears. And a lot of the stories I've been reading are a little unnerving, particularly the one about the mood in Kmart stores where they were actually talking to people who worked in the stores, 941 stores that remain, and they talk about the way that the labor is being handled, the hours are being handled, and the stock and inventory is being handled shows them that these stores are all going to be closing imminently. So that must be hard to work in that sort of environment. But so we have 64 more Kmarts that have just been announced will be closed, which is a small amount, about 10%. But like I say, that might be the most stressed stores right now. And if these rumors are true, we could end up seeing Kmart and a lot of these other stores shut down in the new year after the holidays. They might get through one more holiday, and I suspect it's not going to be a great holiday for a lot of these stores. And when you examine the the details about shipments and goods being exchanged worldwide, there's a downtrend there, as we know. So what kind of stock and what kind of supplies will be in these stores for the next holiday season will yet to be seen. We're getting late into September now, and October and November coming up, and we're not seeing a lot of restocking in these stores. But anyway, well, we also have the announcement of 100 Macy's stores out of 770 that will close in 2017, and 4,350 people were laid off this year when 41 stores were closed. So we have a slow attrition in a lot of these stores, and like I say, we could see this slow attrition now, and then a bloodbath after the holidays. And we have all sorts of other factors involved in this too, this relationship with all different sectors that are all having trouble right now, and that includes companies like DuPont and Cisco, Microsoft, Caterpillar, Intel, and Halliburton. Although technically not retail, a lot of these businesses, markets can overlap. So we're seeing a lot of decay in the tech sector, oil services, and retail. But we also said that not only do we find that the mood in the stores is talking about an imminent close down, we have a report out from Moody's that also suggests that Sears and Kmart will shut down imminently. Sears sales have dropped from $41 billion in the year 2000, and now 15 years later, they're down to $15 billion. Dramatic change. Kmart, the same thing in that same period. They have gone from $37 billion to $10 billion. And so they also have to unwind a lot of their pension contributions and all their debt problems. And so that's why, besides the collapse in sales, just overall collapse in sales, they have a lot of underlying rot that they also have to deal with. And one of the things that's deceptive about the retail contraction is the fact that overall retail has edged up, but a lot of that is mostly either e-commerce, the switch over to online shopping, or mostly inflation. But retail stores and brick and mortar in the malls are just getting hammered. And like I say, all these companies have lost so much value. Dillard's, Nordstrom, JCPenney, Sears, Kohl's, Macys, all having a lot of problems. And this is due to a number of things that I've talked about before. Rapidly changing technology has a lot to do with this, and we've seen this before. Whole sectors of retail have disappeared. You can't go to a store and get oil and wicks for your lamps at the lamp store anymore. But so we have rapidly changing technology. We have outsourcing, so a lot of business and retail and a lot of these other companies are all suffering from outsourcing, but also automation, as I've talked about before. A lot of it is really not outsourcing so much as automation, and people really need to realize that. They can't blame everything on the Chinese and the Mexicans. There's a lot of robotics going on, and it's getting talked about now. But anyway, then we also have a list of a whole bunch of other companies. A lot of them you may or may not be familiar with, but there's a lot of carnage going on out there that's not being talked about. At the end of 2015, we had Wet Seal filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. We had American Apparel file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And American Eagle and Kohl's closed a lot of stores. Hancock Fabrics, 2 different bankruptcies in the last 7 years. 4,500 jobs, 250 stores closing. Walmart closed 260 stores and laid off 17,500 people. Claire's, 150 stores closed. Aeropostal, 800 teen clothing stores filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And Pacific Sunwear of California, 600 stores, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then the Sports Authority, 450 stores closing. So that's a lot of carnage out there. And like I say, a lot of this is really not out there in the news or being talked about. And you know, if you don't go out and see some of these malls yourself, you'd be surprised what's going on out there. I know I live in an area of Washington State now where there are some local malls that are definitely seeing the carnage. And then the last part of this story is a new report that just came out. It said that Sears' problems threatened to kill off at least 200 malls. And that's pretty interesting because one of the videos I did talked about the fact that something like 200 to 300 to 400 malls need to close in order for the mall industry to be productive again. But in the last 10 years, 22% of Sears stores closed. They have 683 left. And no doubt how many malls Sears is the anchor store to. And so we could see a lot of carnage. In a lot of ways, if these Sears stores close, 200 malls are lost, and then we have a lot of commercial real estate that's on the market again. It's going to be hard to market. Who are going to be the new anchor stores? And is the mall industry in itself just going to die off? And of course, that's the truth of it. The mall industry is dying off, and these giant flagship retail stores are going to die a slow death, and the online retail industry will take over. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to see a lot of retail carnage. We're going to see a lot of store closings, and we're going to see massive layoffs, and something I can guarantee for 2017. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.